Today's a good one. I'm going to be talking to you about how to design a logo. Before I start, I've just got to say that I have been a logo designer for over 8 years now. So everything that I'm going to be covering in this video today has literally taken me years to learn and perfect. So yeah, I've decided that today I'm going to give you my secret sauce to logo design. Before I jump into the logo design, I've just got to quickly emphasise the importance of establishing your company name and having an overall tone of voice for your business. It really is important. Your name needs to be established simply because it becomes really more difficult to change it once you've done your logo design. And also the tone of voice has to be established simply because if you're creating a logo design and it's bubbly and energetic and you're a solicitor's, it's not really going to match up with what you do. So it really is important that before you start any of this process, you've got your name sorted and you understand the tone of voice of the business. If you're anything like me, you've got your name and you are going to be bubbling with ideas and you're going to want to jump straight into the logo design. But honestly, you've got to resist the urge. What you've got to do first is your research. By this, I mean research your competitors, look at their styles, how do they portray themselves? And also, you've always got to keep thinking, okay, how am I going to differentiate myself from these guys? Is it different colours? Is it different shapes that you use? Always keep thinking, how am I going to be more memorable than them? Whether you're working for yourself on a project or for a client, I always find the best place to start is with a mood board. A mood board is a collection of images that really just represents everything about the business. So on this, you could have a collection of different logos that you like. Or if you think outside the box and you want to be a bit more abstract, you could put things such as architecture, flowers, fashion, anything, literally anything can go on your mood board. It's just something to get the creative juices flowing and getting the ideas bubbling in your head. As a word of warning though, if you're doing this for a client and you send it over to them and you're not there to explain it and you've gone really abstract with the things that you've put on there, it's just going to confuse them and ultimately you're going to end up with an email saying, "What the hell is this?" And nobody wants that. There are a few options to create a mood board. The traditional way is to get magazines and cut out images and print things out off on the internet, and that does work and it's a real good visual aid if you put it up and you keep looking at it. It really is good. However, in terms of a time point of view, I always use Pinterest. It's super quick and easy to use, and best of all, it's free. The benefit is it's all online. There are literally millions of photos on there for you to have a look through and get inspiration from. And also, if you're working with a client, you can collaborate with them. You can invite them to the private board and they can add and remove things depending on whether they like them or not. However, again, another word of warning with that is if you do invite a client to actually have an input on that mood board, you've got to be careful, because I've had it from experience where I go onto the Pinterest board in the morning and they've put like 200 images on there and it just kills the board. So I would always cherry pick the clients that you decide to let onto that mood board, and you'll be able to tell whether they've got the creative flair and whether they understand the logo design process. You have still got to resist going on the computer. I honestly find in the initial ideas phase that using pen and paper is the best way and the fastest to get the ideas bubbling. I normally tend to print out my mood board and get all of my well-used design books out, and what I'll do is I'll skim through them, and as I'm having a look through them, any idea that pops into my head I'll just quickly scribble down in my notepad. And this is for every idea. There's no like picking the best. Any idea that you have, quickly just doodle it down, because you'll never know what could come from that. I know exactly what is going to happen to you at this stage. You are going to get about 10-15 minutes into it. You are going to have one idea that's stuck in your head, and everything you do beyond that will be very similar to that design that you're stuck on. So what I recommend from experience is stopping for a few minutes, put the kettle on, have a cup of tea, and then come back. Don't start anything else because you've got the creative juices flowing. Come back, skim through your books again, skim through your Pinterest board as well, and then start a new page spread and just start scribbling ideas down again. I could guarantee that more ideas will come out of that. That is what I'd recommend. For me, you'll know when you've got enough initial concepts scribbled down. I tend to have between 10 and 15 different scribbles that are completely different, if you get what I mean. If you are working with a client, some designers do send off these scribbles to the client. Personally, I don't like doing this because, firstly, it doesn't look that clean and ready, and ultimately, for me, my scribbles are only I can understand them. So what I tend to do is I will put them into Illustrator first, design them up a little bit, and then I'll send them off. But obviously that is completely up to you. You can now start using your computer to design your logo. Personally, I always use Adobe Illustrator to create my logos. However, if you're not a designer, I completely understand that it is confusing to use, and also it's bloody expensive. There are free, easy to use options out there. I've personally heard that Inkscape is really good to use. However, I've got to say I would never use Photoshop to create a logo, and that's purely because it's a raster-based program instead of it being a vector-based program. So you might be wondering, what the hell does that mean? Basically, Photoshop is for photos. It's kind of in the name. A perfect example would be if you put a 6:4 photo in there and then you zoom in really close, you'll see the little squares, which are called pixels if you've never heard of them. And obviously, if you stretch that picture out to a billboard, you're gonna get those pixels and it's gonna look nasty. So why would you put your logo in there? And you might be thinking, oh well, I'll never do that with my logo. It'll never be on a billboard. But if you put it on a van, same principle. So what I'd always use is Illustrator. That is a vector-based program. So what are vectors? Instead of it being squares, a vector-based program, it uses infinitely zoomable lines in all of the artwork, which means that you can keep zooming and zooming and zooming in on it, and it will never pixelate. Which means that you could have your logo on a business card or on the size of a billboard. It'll work no matter where it is, it'll always look great. So yeah, always use a vector-based program such as Illustrator or CorelDRAW. So from your scribbles, I would take 3 of the best designs that you've got on there in terms of both the visual style of it, so what you think looks best, and also what represents the business the best. And from here, what I do is I would create 3 separate artboards in Illustrator, and I put your scribble on there, scribble on there, and scribble on there, and then I create a vector version of that file in black and white. Now I can't take credit for this next step because it's from Aaron Draplin's logo design tutorial on Skillshare, and it's brilliant. What he recommends doing is taking your vectorized image, and then for every iteration of that design put a little arrow and then duplicate it, another arrow, duplicate it. And then what that does is it creates a lovely flow of how your idea is developed. I'll put a link in the description to the video. Like I said, it's brilliant. I've used it all the time because it gives a good flow of how the design is developed. And also, if you decide when you get to the end of the tweaks that you think, oh, I'm really not a fan of it, it's sort of lost its way, you can go back to number 3 and carry on developing it from there. Genuinely brilliant technique. When I'm working on a logo design and I've got the initial concepts, you might have gathered by now that I only send 3 initial concepts. I don't send loads. At this stage, I only tend to work in black and white, keep it minimal. You know, you don't need any fancy mock-ups at this stage, and I do not add any colour. For me, the worst thing in the world is when I'm sending initial concepts over and the only feedback the client gives me is, oh, could you change the colour of that green? And it's like, you've not given me any feedback on the logo whatsoever, you've just looked at the colour. And it's just, genuinely, it's just a horrible place to be in. So yeah, keep it in black and white and just focus on the actual design of the logo. At this point, I'd like to introduce you to my chili scale. It's something that I use on every logo design project, and honestly, it works. So with this, there are 3 different scales, as you might have guessed, and they are mild, hot, and spicy. Honestly, I love it. So it tiers up the logo design, so each of the concepts you've got on there are put into one of these 3 categories. Design 1, which is mild. This is exactly what the client is expecting. It fits well into their comfort zone, and if you was put it next to their competitors, it would fit in nicely. The next one is design 2, which is hot. So this takes the first design and adds a bit more to it. So this could be different types of font, could be a different icon design that just pushes the boundaries a little bit just to get the client out of the comfort zones. And the last one is design 3, which is spicy. I love this one. It's the chance to just go mad with it. Love it. So what I do is I always treat it as if this was my own business and I had complete control over the logo design and no one was going to give any feedback. This is how I would design it, and I just go for it. This approach has genuinely always worked for me, and in all honesty, the clients tend to go for an in-between ground between 1 and 2. However, if you know the client well and they're more designer savvy, mention the chili scale to them, because it tends to give them a push to go further up the scale, which is always good because you get a bit more creative freedom with it. But yeah, definitely try out the chili scale. Once you have all this set up and it's all looking great, I would send this over to the client with the mood board and then just wait. Give them a few days. If you're working for yourself and this is a project for your own logo design, this process still does work. So what you do is you have to really force yourself to think outside of the box. So obviously you create your design that you expect you to create and just keep pushing yourself. You can do it, believe it or not, you can. And then what I do is print them out and put them somewhere in your house where you walk past it quite a lot. This could be a hallway, it could be your dining room, it could be anywhere. And then leave it there for about 3 days and just let the dust settle on it, because I can guarantee that you'll change your mind and you'll want tweaks in it, and just note them down as you look at it, and from that point you can develop your design. So you've got a logo design that everyone loves, and now you've got to make sure you've got it in the right file formats. This is something that normal tutorials tend to miss out. So whether you're a designer or if you've made it for yourself, I would always make sure that you've got a JPEG, a transparent PNG and a PDF. Make sure it's locked if you're sending it to a client, and always ensure that you've got the working files. So this will be an AI file if it was done in Illustrator. This is really important just in case you do need to make tweaks to the file, or whether in the future you're going to send in your logo to a designer and they need the working files as well. If you're a designer selling to a client, do not send the working files to them at the same cost. Always charge more for the working file if they need it. I'll be a bit reluctant to send it, in all honesty. But yeah, once you've done that, you've got a logo that's ready for the world and you can get cracking with the rest of the things. How amazing is that? So there we go. That is how I make a logo design. Like I said at the beginning, it's been 8 years I've been a logo designer now, and all of that I've just picked up along the way. I thought, why not? I'll tell you how I do it, and I hope that's been useful for you. So yeah, if you have any comments, please leave them below. If you like the video, please like it. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please click subscribe. It means the world. And yeah, thank you ever so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.